So yes, good evening everybody, and thank you for taking time out to join us on the ISC2 Cape Town webinar. This one is a little bit different from the usual ones, but quite important, possibly more important than any of the ones we've done to date. So we are speaking this evening to Chris Gatsi, and the reason is really simple. Chris has been shortlisted for an ISC2 board position, and it's quite significant, and I'll explain why. This is opened up globally for all the ISC members across the globe. There were 120 applicants that met the initial criteria to be considered for this position. 19 were shortlisted for interviews, and out of the 19, only 6 were then shortlisted again, and they are now in the running for one of 4 positions. Chris is one of those 4. So just getting to this stage in itself is quite an achievement already, Chris, and we are immensely proud of you for making it this far. Now, obviously, the next step is to get a seat at that table, right? And what we want to do is we want to get to know you. A lot of people see you, but people don't really know, who is this man behind Chris? What is he all about? And that's what tonight is about. It's about getting to know Chris, understanding, why do you want a seat at that table? What are your primary objectives? What is the 1 or 2 things that you're going to table first that's going to benefit the community as a whole? People take this quite seriously. You see that we've got almost 30 people on the call. People are taking time out. They want to understand, what is the why and who is this Chris. So on that note, maybe just tell us a little bit more about you as a person, from a personal perspective, but also from a professional perspective. Who is Chris Gatsi?
Thank you so much, Grant. I'm humbled to be part of this May online gathering, and I appreciate the support that we're getting from ISC2. They corrected me earlier on to say they love to say ISC2 body of membership. I appreciate it, and I'm humbled. So I was born and bred initially in Zimbabwe. That's where I grew up. I come from a humble background. I come from a maybe marginalized background, should I say, wherein I started and tried a number of initiatives whilst I was still in Zimbabwe. I formed a National Association for Youth Against Corruption, which was a whistleblowing association that gained momentum during the times. And then I moved to South Africa in 2009. I'm a family man. I've got 3 wonderful kids, 2 sons and 1 daughter. So I continued to strive for my journey to try and uplift myself from the challenges that we had economically, obviously coming from Zim. It's a wonderful country, but there were some economic challenges that pushed me to migrate to South Africa. South Africa became my breeding ground. I attended at the University of Cape Town, a postgraduate diploma in computer forensics. I learned a lot of things during that time. I went also into the education field, wherein I won the Microsoft Innovation in Education Awards in the year 2010 for innovation in community. So I represented South Africa in Mombasa in Kenya. That was in 2011. And I won also in Mombasa, and I became a runner-up at the World Finals that were held. So yeah, I actually more or less 90% of my studies, my undergrad and postgrad studies, I conducted them here in South Africa. I did a diploma in criminal justice and forensics with the University of Johannesburg. I did a Bachelor of Accounting Sciences initially with a plan to become a chartered accountant, but later on I jumped off board to get onto the cyber ship. So I've joined a number of companies, notably Mazars Incorporated, where I was an IT auditor, moved to Big Business Innovation Group, where I became the digital forensic lead. Later on, also joining PricewaterhouseCoopers, PwC, here in Midrand, where I was a cybersecurity consultant. I see Bernard is on the call. He was one of my senior managers at PwC. So I worked with a number of people during that time. I also became a senior manager for RC, chartered accountants and auditors, where I worked with a number of private sector and public sector clients. So I'm an open-minded person. I'm someone who loves to collaborate, to network. I've sat at a number of conferences with Grant, wherein I've been maybe a member of a panel or have spoken as an individual speaker, including at the IT Web Conference, ISACA, Digital Identity Africa, FinTech Summit, CISO Africa, and most recently in the United Kingdom, where I also presented on demystifying the often forgotten cybersecurity dynamites at the SANS Institute conference in the UK. So that's me in a nutshell, Grant. I'm mentoring about 8 cybersecurity entrant young people. Some who are going to be doing CISA, some who are doing the CC from our ISC2. So that's the journey that I've been taking. It was not a smooth journey, but I appreciate I've always got support from the South African community, from the African community and beyond. I think you would see on the call also are joined by a number of people from beyond the African soil, from CISO alliances, etc.
No, thank you, Chris. I must say you look so relaxed for such a busy man, but quite admirable to hear all these things about you. So really good to get to know you, right? So looking now specifically at you pursuing a board membership at ISC2 International, what is the driver behind that? You know, what are you hoping to get out of it, and what is fueling this?
Oh, that's quite an interesting question. Now, maybe I can give a little bit of background. The ISC2 was actually born out of a consortium of organizations. So it's a coalition of actual diverse organizations in 1989. And I strongly believe that it has thrived up to this very day because of inclusivity, because of that diversity that it represents. So by the same token, I believe if I'm not the first, perhaps maybe one of the first candidates from Africa to sit on the ISC² board, it will mean a lot. It will give us a voice at that global stage to influence policy, to influence decision making, and to represent also the unique perspectives and challenges that we have here in Africa. I was just recently reading an article from Interpol. We've got over 500 million internet users in Africa. You can see, and we have a number of challenges. 90% of our businesses don't have the necessary safeguards to safeguard their ICT ecosystems. So there's a lot of work to be done, and ISC2 members are actually equipped through their various certifications to help us solve these problems, to close the cybersecurity gap, etc. Grant.
No, thank you. So it's quite clear that you've got noble intentions and great ambitions, and I think that's why the ISC2 and everybody on this call is supporting you, right? I think I can speak for us all to say you've got our support. Now, I know that you're a very structured man. I know that you've got a manifesto, and I would like for you to share a little bit about this manifesto, you know, and this way we really get to understand what the driving force is behind you wanting to be on that board. You can bring it up as well if you want to share the actual manifesto.
Thank you so much, Grant. I'll quickly share my PowerPoint window. I don't know, can you see it clearly?
We can see, definitely.
Thank you so much. So my underpinning principle is servant leadership. When we talk of servant leadership, we're talking about leadership that is not self-centered, that does not have self-aggrandizement. It's a leadership that represents the voice, obviously, of the voiceless. It's a leadership that puts the membership first and ahead. I've got a quote here from Sheryl Sandberg that says leadership is about making others better as a result of your presence and making sure that your impact lasts in your absence. So I would want to make obviously an indelible mark during my tenure. I'm quite happy. One of the things that I wanted to raise, which already the present board has actually alluded to, is a limit of the term of office for board of directors, which didn't exist in the past. But with the new board, they've actually limited it quite well to 2 terms, and I'm happy. It shows that we are paving way for others. We are giving way for fresh perspectives and others to actually ascend to various board positions. Let me quickly go to the manifesto itself. So my point of departure, Grant, is that to say it's a consortium of diverse organizations. It's equals to diverse regions. We've got North America, we've got South America, we've got Africa, we've got Europe, Middle East, and Africa. equals diverse members, is equal also to a diverse board. As it stands, the rules actually allow for 13 members to sit on the board, and obviously the directors have a discretion to set a higher number. But out of the 13, if you visit our website, you'd see 5 are already coming from the United States. We have the United Kingdom represented. We have parts of Asia, that is Qatar and United Arab Emirates represented. We still don't have an African present, not just for symbolic purposes, but because we've got some unique challenges, unique problems, a huge membership from ISC2, and people who have got great ideas and great input that they would want to channel. So easy enough, if also we have one representative sitting at the board at this point in time, I think it's time for Africa, as they said in 2010 during the World Cup. So my point number one, Grant, if I've got your blessing, is to actually propose a recruiter and employer engagement drive, which I call a READ. I think those who are familiar with what a READ is, a READ grows tall, it has to be visible. I think we need to do more engagements as ISC2 to engage recruiters, to engage employers and explain to them the value that comes from our certification programs. Many of them might not know and might not see the value. So the moment we engage them, if we have a proper drive, a strategic drive to actually explain to them and also actually get their input on their requirements as businesses and as organizations, that's going to make a huge difference within the IT and cybersecurity space. Secondly, I would like to propose the streamlining of our certifications. I'm not going to name a competitor organization that has got too many certifications. There are too many such that you can't even follow. So I think our prestigious ISC2 is that we don't have too many. Our portfolio is just of 9 certifications. And I still feel we need to streamline, except where we really need some speciality. Let's say, for example, we need enterprise architecture certification specifically, that would be fine. But certain things that we can still just channel towards our CISSP, which is like a bronze or gold or platinum standard, whatever you call it, it is going to help us to create that image that we are not just there maybe to look for money and raise money, like these other competitor organizations that have got 300 or 400 types of certifications without actual value coming out of them. My third point, Grant, I think I've lost you, okay. Proposing a working committee on investigations. I'm a certified fraud examiner myself. So I would like to actually propose that we have a working committee on investigations that ensures that we enforce our bylaws as ISC2, enforces rules and regulations that pertain to providers as accorded into by our articles of the organization. We also want to ensure that the integrity of our certifications remain as they are. We want to ensure that we've got good ethics. There have been a lot of outcries out there, bogus providers, people giving shortcuts. I think we did see a lot of sentiments coming out from our memberships to say people are talking about ways where people write for other people's exams, etc., etc. We would want to enforce rules and regulations as per our bylaws and ensure that we maintain the integrity of our certification as it is based on transparency, it's based on ethics. The fourth point is promoting participation and inclusivity. I was reading the Women in Cybersecurity research that we recently conducted as ISC2. I'm still not pleased seeing that consistently we've got a 20 to 25% representation of women. While yes, there's little to celebrate, to say at least it's something, I think we still need to do more, whether it's from the scholarship program that our Center for Cyber Defense and Education is offering. We need to channel more funds towards that. We need to have public-private partnerships coming on board to channel towards the inclusion of women in cybersecurity and promotion even of young girls that are just leaving varsity. I see you've got a nice program there in Cape Town with KPMG, similar to that. something that we can do at a global scale and ensure we channel more resources towards marginalized groups and remove those barriers to entry and red tape. So that's promoting participation. Also, if possible, and I stand to be corrected, maybe future, looking at our numbers for ISC2 and possibly having a directorate that is based on a quota system to say, obviously, let's say the United States is well represented, has got more members, maybe they have more seats on the board, then followed by the other one, so that there's a little bit of more representation across the globe. And then we really speak the diversity, we're really speaking the embracing that we speak about as ISC2. My fifth point, sorry, I'm taking too long, and I see you are very time conscious, Grant. Proposing a Middle East and Africa Advisory Committee. At the present moment, we do have advisory committees for other regions like Asia Pacific, North America, I think, South America, and the UK, but we don't have one for Middle East and Africa. Yet we have got a huge membership coming from Middle East and Africa. So I would like to propose strongly, wherein our chapter leadership, because they stand on the ground, they meet the people, they know our challenges, they know the input, they know the direction that we would want to move towards, are represented in that kind of advisory council, which reports to the board, and possibly a convocation of our chapters, chapter leaderships, to actually come for a convocation other than our annual general meeting, where we actually look at issues at hand. What are the challenges from our different regions, from our different chapters? What is the input coming from our general membership is my point number 5, a grant. Point number 6, I'm left with only one after point number 6, because 7 is a number of perfection. Engaging and partnering with governments, sister organizations, policymakers, etc. I was quite happy to see one of our actual members of ISC2, Alex Motima. He actually forged good relationships with the University of New York in Tirana, and I was quite happy to see that this is the direction that we need to get into. Not just competing with sister organizations, whether it's ASACA, whether it's EC Council, sorry, I'm naming some of them, but possibly also forging partnerships with those organizations where we feel like they've got a strength in a certain area. ISC2 can come hand in glove and join together with those organizations, and we become a formidable force, whether offering certain training, whether offering certain solutions to our people by partnering with those sister organizations. That's going to influence policymakers, and it also represents a united front in the cyber space, other than us just competing. Well, obviously, we want to preserve our intellectual property, we would want to preserve our leadership stance, but it is also good to partner. It makes us more stronger than weaker. Finally, improving access to information and transparency. Our general membership has been complaining. They want to know the figures, they want to know the numbers. How many members do we have from Africa? How many members do we have from the Middle East? How many members do we have in Europe? I feel like, yes, whilst we have certain limitations and things that we'd want to protect, improving our transparency maybe to our membership with certain conditions. Obviously, it is time now where we need to be disclosing numbers to our members so that it drives their decision making. It even also speaks to the employers to know how prestigious our certifications are. So a data-driven decision making where we actually get data from our chapters, get data from what is actually happening out there, and gain some insights that could make impactful changes within the ISC2 membership body. I think that's the 7-point manifesto that I have for our membership grant. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chris. So quite insightful, and again, further giving us insight into what is driving you and what changes it is you wish to make. So I've got 2 more questions, and then we open up to all the people attending just to see, if there's any questions from them they want to pose to you. Given the current challenges from a South African and from an African perspective, right? What are those top two things that you're going to be trying to address? You know, your first 90 days, what would that look like in terms of the agenda?
Well, thank you so much, Grant. Yeah, so the two key priorities is improving the marketability and employability of our ISC squared members. So every program should be centered on the members themselves. So it should be a member-centric organization. We seek to serve the members. We seek to empower our members. We seek to ensure that we close the skills gap that we actually facing at the present moment. And that can only be done if we are coming down to our members, to our people, to hear what input they have from the ground, from the grassroots level. When we just sit there as the board of directors and we are not coming down to the ground, let's say we have maybe a tour Africa with the board of directors where we visit our chapters, we meet and hear what the people have to say and engage them and collect, and not just collect for ceremonial purposes, but collect information and input for them for meaningful and impactful changes on what the body or our SC squared members are expecting. So a tour Africa, a tour Europe, something of that nature. Not that I just want to travel Grant, but actually to meet the voices on the ground and see what challenges our people are having would be the first point of departure. The second one is earlier alluded to. There is a lot. I spoke about transparency. I've got good exposure in audit committees at Bidvest Group, where I am working as a group IT audit manager. So I sit in actually more than 30 subsidiaries. They've got board meetings. We've got audit committees for different divisions. So I've been exposed to a number of things in those board and audit committees. I'm looking forward to be actually maybe possibly serving under the audit committee of the board of ISC2 so that we can see how our financials going. How can we maybe possibly drive investments as afforded to in our articles of the organization to ensure if we've got business units that we are running that provide profit, it is going to lower even the costs of our membership fee of our exams a little bit, so that our young people who are also trying to enter SEM can also get a chance to actually be able to afford our exams. Maybe some kind of, from a mathematical perspective, grant membership. Let's say you have joined as a member in 2024, your membership fees was $135. Surely would expect maybe 5 years down the line that it goes down instead of be going up. If we have those solid investments from whatever reserves that we'll be having as ISC squared. So we'd want to drive those things to see how can we make best use of the finances of the ISC squared. How can we do that transparently and for the benefit of the membership? That's what I will be driving as the first two key things, Grant.
No, thank you. Thank you, Chris. I think it's quite exciting to know that from an accountability perspective, you know, with these large global multinational organizations, it's very difficult to speak to a decision maker, you know, but having somebody, I almost want to say a local throat to choke would be quite powerful for us, because now we would know somebody that we can communicate with, and you can take that message all the way to the top. So that's quite powerful. Chris, the last question I have is, before I open up, just in terms of the logistics, you know, leading up to the elections, voting, when does it open? What is the process? Now, I know we will be putting out those instructions online, but maybe just on a briefly explain to us, when does it open? How does it work? How long is the voting period?
Thank you, Grant. So according to our articles of the organization, which is part of our bylaws, an election period is opened 120 days before the election date. So it's actually announced, they announced the election 120 days, which they've done already. And what then happens is that those who wish to sit on the board of directors, they do what we call self-nomination. You self-nominate, you submit documentation to the directors and the nomination committee. They have a look and then they screen the candidates, because usually, obviously, they receive overwhelming number of applications based on the criteria, your board exposure, ability to speak, etc., etc. Then what then happens is that after they've done interviews and nominations and if they've shortlisted a slate of candidates, the board is required to actually then advertise that slate 90 days before the election day. So which has just also happened recently, meaning there will be 3 months or 90 days roughly before the election day. Then what then happens, every member that is fully paid up and is in good standing with ISC2, as of, for example, now it's as of January 2024, meaning someone then gets a certification in February 2024, they are not eligible to vote. They then are allowed to vote. A link is sent. We've got an external organization that runs the elections. And that external organization is a kind of our maybe independent electoral commission. We're in election period here in South Africa. That's why I'm trying to give this as reference. So that's to also promote independence and transparency of the election process. So a link will be sent to all those fully paid up members who are in good standing as of January 2024, whether you hold the Certified in Cybersecurity certification, whether you hold the CISSP, whether you hold the Certified in Cloud Security Professional, whatever certification you hold and you're in good standing, you'll be eligible to vote. So our elections are running from June 18 up to July the 22nd. That's a 2 weeks window as per our articles of the organization again, to ensure that everyone has got an equal opportunity and adequate chance to actually cast their vote and select a representative of their choice to the board of directors.
No, thank you. Thank you so much, Chris. It's been quite insightful speaking to you, understanding a little bit more about who you are and why you're pursuing this. So from my side, thank you so much. What I want to do now is open up to the delegates on the call. If you could just raise your hand, and then what you can do is you can just pose a question directly to Chris. You could come on video or you can leave the video, it doesn't matter. So it's open now for any questions or comments or feedback, anything you wanted to say to Chris. Okay, let's go with Salih. Okay, we lost Salih. Tumiso.
Oh, thank you, Grant. Thank you, Chris. Unfortunately, I'm not camera ready. Yeah, next time I will put the voice on the face. Yeah. Chris, I just want to find out from you in terms of navigating through, your career to where you are now. What kind of strategies or skills, you applied, to have a buy-in into management, to senior level? The reason I'm asking this, I'm trying to navigate through the organizations that I'm working for. It doesn't have like sort of a broader cybersecurity division. It's too small, but I think we can still make a difference. In terms of applying the skills that we get along in meeting the business like-minded individual like yourself and everyone in this call and sharing ideas. So I'm trying to to navigate through to have a sort of a buy-in, promoting cybersecurity and also ISC2 in terms of like training those or encouraging those who are are below me to get those kind of certification, and then also my organization to recognize the certifications that we go out there and acquire. Because myself, I'm sort of like doing this financing some of them myself, just to try and build a solid foundation on my journey to CISP. Thanks.
Thank you, Grant. Do I have your blessing to respond?
Oh, yes. No. You respond to all the questions first. When the hands come up, you respond.
Thank you so much. And thank you to Miso for the question. I've just put some few notes here. First thing, I think, try and join a community of practice. I'm not sure where you reside, whether in Cape Town or you are in Gauteng, join a chapter. As you go to this community of practices, one of the days, maybe invite your manager, invite your senior to come to that community of practice. We've got a lot of community of practices. These organizations are open-minded and they actually open our minds. When you take your boss down to that particular maybe chapter meeting or event, usually they begin now to understand the reason or the essence of the need for cybersecurity within the organization. For example, if it's a conference or so, there are many of them that are actually free. There are some that are paid for, but you can start obviously with the ones that are not paid for. Attend with them, go there, let them just get those insights, invite them, over a cup of coffee, you sit down in those communities of practice, they get exposed to what is actually happening there. We usually have very good speakers. It's through networking, it's through collaboration where even yourself, you actually learn. I've learned through collaboration and networking. When I started, the first time I actually spoke and I was given a chance to actually be a speaker, I was quite scared. I made a lot of mistakes, and through those mistakes, I then became better. I know Mother Teresa says, and I'm going to quote, we cannot all do great things, but we can do small things with great love. So when you do it with passion and it's coming out of your heart, get those baby steps, have this aptitude for continuous learning. Your plate can never be full. Your glass should always be half. To learn, be ready to learn, to be corrected. At PwC, I learned a lot from my seniors because I made my glass actually half. I learned a lot from them. And that's how we grow. And networking is quite key in your cybersecurity journey and growth.
Thank you so much, Chris. We've got 3 hands up, so we'll go in the order. Deirdre?
Okay, thanks, Grant. Okay, so Chris, as you know, artificial intelligence is on everybody's lips, and yeah, everybody, we are saying it's transformational. It's going to change the way we do things. So I'm just interested in terms of what are your thoughts and how will you, what will you maybe address the cybersecurity issues related to AI in your position as on the board? So what are the kind of issues will you address from a cybersecurity perspective?
Thank you so much, Deirdre. Appreciate it. I think quite topical topic. Some people might think it's just a hype. I know we had a lot of things that came in the cybersecurity field that were hypes. We just talk about them, then later on they disappear, something new comes. Maybe we're talking identity and access, then zero trust technology comes. But I think with AI, first, it's important for us to acknowledge that we need to embrace these emerging technologies. They help with the effectiveness of work. They help even for us to learn 1 or 2, 3 things from it, be it your chat GPTs, etc. So these are tools of trade that most people use. And I feel like from a policy perspective, we've seen some traction already globally, beginning obviously in Europe and the like. We were beginning to see regulation of artificial intelligence to say this is what is acceptable and this is what is not acceptable. Coincidentally, I'm actually writing a research paper or a white paper with the University of Joburg, where I'm completing a master's in education in ICTs. And I've been looking at how also things like AI can actually lead to unethical practices within the education sector. Students now just chuck into the AI tools and they get their essays written from there. And many universities and our learning institutions have not drafted policies, which is a gap on how to address, and they've not actually looked into having certain tools that can pick up that to say, oh, this writing is not just from an ordinary person. Chances are 70, 80% an AI tool has actually been used. These are some of the gaps that us as ISC2 members, Deirdre, we need to actually raise awareness to our immediate communities, raise awareness to the people who are consuming AI, whether it's organizations or institutions across. So definitely at ISC2 level, I've seen courses already that have been developed and designed to empower people in terms of continuing professional development in the area of AI, which is a very good step. because we don't want to be to lag behind from the other competitor organizations, or to have our ISC2 members who are not aware of the threats that are posed by AI. For example, as I wrap up to answer your question, sorry, Grant, I've been a mouthful on this one. For example, we've got the challenge of employees within an organization, maybe who are using OpenAI as an unsanctioned application. We talk about shadow IT without the organization actually knowing what's happening within the environment. They start uploading sensitive information onto AI tools. In the next minute, I think we have a digital tsunami. Our data is out there on the dark web, et cetera, leaving those exposures. So those are the kind of things that we need to be focusing on, sitting down with our ISC2 Cape Town chapter, Gauteng chapter, and deliberating to say what is our real problem from an African perspective and how can we deal with it. Thank you, Deirdre.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you so much for the question, Deirdre, and thank you, Chris. So we will take 3 more questions, and then what we'll do is any questions beyond that on the event poster on the ISC2 Cape Town chapter page, you can actually just post questions directly there. Chris has committed to respond to each one individually. But we will go to Salih, and then Fasih, and then Nimrod, and then we'll close off. Eh? So Salih, over to you.
Hi, Chris. This is just a quick one, man. I don't want to hold you too long on this question. So I've got a lot of people also that I engage with online and within our organization, and just friends and colleagues. So they've gone through the certification process, and a lot of quite a bit of questions are coming up regarding the cost. Number one, for the, for example, the CISSP and some of the other, the GRC, CGRC programs, given that South Africa has a rand-dollar exchange rate. How is the ISC2, my question is, how's the ISC2 helping folks like us in Africa, where the cost implication in order to do the certifications are extremely high? I know there is a program where you can purchase for $600-700 and rewrite if you get an opportunity to rewrite that certification. And then secondly, the second question I want to pose is, how do we bridge the gap between what we know knowledge-wise and then with what the organizations require? Because there's a big gap between that. What you're actually learning on the IC2 chapter and then actually what's being implemented within a live organization. Thanks, man.
Thank you so much, Sally, and thank you for the very, very insightful questions. So I'll address the cost of exam one. I think that I've alluded to a little bit earlier on through my manifesto. It's one of the things that we definitely need to address as ISC2 to make our exams affordable through investments that can be done. The ISC squared has been there for more than 30 years, around 35 years, and there should be possibly good reserves that we can plow back to historically marginalized communities for programs that can uplift even our young people, deserving young people who would want to enter the cyberspace. But mostly what I feel like is if we have those investments and business investments that bring in or generate more, we don't then have a high reliance on exam fees and training fees and membership fees. Because the moment we are more reliant on that, even our ethics can end up being compromised. We might end up saying, oh, this season, let's just make more people to pass so that we can have more members and actually gain more revenue. So in order for us to move away from that, it is important that as per our articles of the organization, we actually invest whatever we have to generate more revenue that can be plowed back to our communities. That's on the exam cost one. I love also the retake one where they're giving opportunities to say if you register, you have 2 opportunities to write, because it's not a witch hunt. It's not meant to make people fail. It's meant to give people the necessary knowledge, like you are saying, and concepts and principles to be understood. Then on your second aspect of the question, I love it. One of my proposals in the engagements that I've been having with other ISC2 members across the globe was to say, I think it's high time now maybe where possible we can have a CISSP practical. I'm not saying necessarily that name, wherein we've got avenues where people, if someone is going to concentrate more on the cyber defense side and they want to learn about firewalls without being vendor specific, but still being vendor neutral, we have an exam where they actually have to do certain things. If it's configurations, they just do those configurations, showing that this is what I'll do. If it's something that is to do with management, are they able to write a proper report? That way, as ISC2, we can then look at and mark those reports and see, is this person now having the necessary skills other than just the theoretical knowledge? I think it's an area where we are quite lacking and we need to move towards the practical elements. If it's industrial control systems, the safeguarding of industrial control systems, let's have a simulated environment for industrial control systems where you then tweak or you drag something, you show this is what I'm supposed to do, this is what I'm supposed to do, this is how I segment the network, etc. Thank you for that one. I love that one, Sally.
Thank you for that question, Charlie, and thank you so much, Chris, for your response. Fasih Osman.
Thank you, Grant. Thank you, Chris. Very insightful indeed. I've got two questions, Chris. One might put you on a bit of a spot, and the second one, let's segue from the previous question. The first question is, what would you say the gold standard is for the South African market in terms of certification? Seeing that you are obviously a member of the EC Council as well as ISACA. And then my second question is, with South Africa and Africa in general, would there be any, is there any consideration for legislative as well as regulatory type certifications or kind of knowledge sharing or short courses would be specific to South Africa? As an example, Papaya. Because the ISC2 does have, GDPR-based questionnaires. They have, for many other regulatory requirements and legislative requirements, but not really for South Africa. So would there be any focus on that as well going forward?
Thank you so much, Fasih. Happy to meet you again online. I know you've supported me through my journey. I've interacted with you a number of times through the communities of practice, and happy to have you online. I think I did understand the second question more, so I'll answer it, then I'll kindly ask for you to repeat very quickly the first one. So yes, I think that's also a gap wherein certain regions like Africa, Middle East could be left out where they've got specifics. But if we have that convocation of chapters, where the likes of Grant, where the likes of our Gauteng chapter leaders and presidents go to a convocation of chapters, they go represent to say, this is what we require from a regional perspective or from a country perspective, then the ISC2 can channel those things that are specific to the regions. Because obviously when we write our CISSP, the section that deals with laws and regulations, it speaks more of the US-based laws. So I think obviously we feel a little bit excluded. While it's important, we learn a lot from the US-based laws. It's important for us to have even short courses or short tracks that specifically maybe speak to POPI Act here in South Africa, where people can earn their CPE or CPD points. I think that's a very, very good one. I've taken your point for that second one. I don't know if you can quickly repeat the first one, then I'll quickly sum it up.
Maybe I'll frame it a bit differently, Chris. So what would your recommendations or suggestions be to mid to senior cybersecurity professionals who are wanting to undertake a certification? And I know you're quite well-rounded in terms of EC Council as well as ISACA. Chris, what would you recommend the gold standard they should look for when getting certification? I think consider that they don't have any certification and they just maybe have a degree or a master's as an example. What security certification would you suggest or recommend?
Thank you so much. It's a challenging one, but I'll be very factual. So mid to senior management, it's never too late to learn. I think we had some few people who in their 80s or their 70s actually got their first degree or masters and the like. So what I would suggest is, obviously, we've got entry-level certifications. If you look at the Certified in Cybersecurity, it's a very good entry-level certification. I call it the young brother of CISSP, because if you look at the content, there is quite challenging, and it's content that is very relevant for one to understand the principles, to understand the basics of cybersecurity. And if you see one actually passing the CC certification, I feel like they are ready now to be taken up, whether for an apprenticeship, for real work. And we have these mid to senior people who are already experienced already. So they can just write this just to cement, obviously, their theoretical knowledge. And it would be nice. I think I joked with Joseph Stokes, one of our well-known cyber personnel, to say, possibly maybe it's a time where we can have an honorary CISSP for those people who possess this knowledge, who come and speak at conferences, and you can see that they possess the practical knowledge. They have not written the exam per se, but if you look at the wealth of knowledge that we learn from these people, they are veterans per se for the industry. Can't we confer per se an honorary CISSP with a transparent process, with a fixed criteria that everyone alludes to, but it's never late to learn. The CISSP definitely being a gold standard and a very good certification for mid to senior management. If they want to specialize, then they can do the ISSF and the cloud certification concentrations, etc.
No, great questions. Thank you for that, Fasih, and some good responses there. Thank you, Chris, for the insights. So we'll go over to our last question and then we'll close it off. So Nimrod, over to you. Nimrod, if you are speaking, you're on mute. We seem to be having some technical difficulties from Nimrod. Let's give it one more try. Nimrod, you maybe want to type the question? We can't hear you.
Hello.
Hi there. We can hear you
Hello.
now. We can hear you. You can
sorry.
ask.
Sorry for that. Thank you, Grant. Thank you, Chris. So my question is, okay, so let me start by saying, as a young Zimbabwean myself, I want to say that the way you have navigated through the challenges serves as an inspiration to all of us. And you have shared some brilliant ideas there. But my question is that apparently many companies this side, like in Africa, still see cybersecurity merely as a cost center. So in your opinion, what strategies could be employed to elevate perception on cybersecurity and shift this narrative towards viewing it as an indispensable investment? And yes, and yes, I think that's my question.
Thank you, Nimrod. Over to you, Chris.
Thank you so much, Nimrod, and I'm happy to have you on this session. I'm going to give you an unethical answer first, as a joke per se. Just take them so that they see the importance of cybersecurity. I'm joking on this one, Nimrod. Just maybe what I feel is it is important for us to raise awareness as ISC2. It is our duty also to conscientize our communities, to conscientize the business world on the repercussions of a cyber attack, for example. The South African government, for example, had been quite reluctant for a long time, and we have recently seen a spate of attacks. The DTI was attacked. We had critical infrastructure related government agencies being attacked, and they're beginning to see that this is no joke. It's actually an area that needs great attention. Lately, obviously, we know they've been, obviously, it could be political statements to say we want to have this policy, we want to have this commission, which are nice things, but the implementation part is usually what lacks. So most governments usually ignore the implementation part. But with these examples that are actually happening in our real world, where you see things actually happening, the DTI being down, give them those examples and show them the consequences and the impact of cyber attacks. Try and quantify it for them to say, look at how much money has been lost now in trying to recover from this cyber attack. Let them see that no one is actually immune, no organization is actually immune to these cyber attacks. It's just a matter of time. We see Africa has become a huge target. It's actually a playground for these hackers and adversaries. So it's high time that we need to be more proactive than reactive. They need to be more prepared. So expose these statistics to them, put them down properly to them, show them how much exposure is Africa exposed to. If we have technical ISC2 members, usually what I do with clients, I offer them a free vulnerability assessment or a free assessment of their environment, where we then show them that look at all these vulnerabilities that are existing within your environment. If you are a penetration tester, you can demo to them to say, look, this is how vulnerable you are, and these are the consequences. That also works if you are within a company. You say, I want to add value. Let me demonstrate this A, B, C, D to you. You follow all the rules properly. You get a letter of engagement. Do some vulnerability scan for them, explain and show them how these vulnerabilities can expose them to the cyber world. I think that would be one of the steps that you can actually do to try and bring them on board. But definitely, we do have a lot of examples of huge cyber attacks.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chris. Clifford, unfortunately, we are closing off now. So what we will do is you can post a question in the chat, or you can post it on LinkedIn, and Chris will come back to it. But I just want to take a moment to actually thank everybody for taking some time out to really come and understand, who is Chris, what is the mandate, why is he doing this? So Chris, thank you for your time as well, explaining to us, your manifesto and your drive. I think I speak for all of us to say that you've got our support. What we will do is we will have this webinar uploaded onto our YouTube channel tomorrow. We'll share the link. And then on a regular basis going forward, we will be posting crucial information around the voting process and the deadlines to support Chris. Chris, any closing comments from you before we close down on the session?
Thank you so much, Grant. I'd just like to thank the membership and all the people that came on board on this webinar. We greatly appreciate it. Let's continue to make a cyber and secure cyber world. Let's continue to work. That small piece that we do, that small piece, it joins together. It gives the huge impact. Let's work together. Let's collaborate. Let's share best practices. Let's uplift our young people who want to enter the cyberspace. And thank you so much.
Thank you all. Thank you, and have a good evening. And for anybody still traveling home, be safe. Thank you all. Keep well.